everybody knows, but everybody knows Mindy, I assume,
Yeah.
right? Okay, I'm Mindy's dad. My name is Ed, and this year, 2019, I hiked the northern half of the Appalachian Trail. A little bit more than halfway. I started in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. But I'll tell you a little bit of, I could talk for 10 hours because there's so much to talk about. But we're gonna try to do it in about an hour. I created some slides, some with information that we can talk about, some with some pictures. I got a little video, just a small video clip of an interview that I had done my first day on the trail. And we'll talk about stuff, and maybe at the end, if we got time, we'll have some questions and stuff like that, if you got any. Or Mindy said, what, 3:30, somebody has to use this room, so it really gives us like an hour and a half maximum.
If you can't hear him, raise your hand so he knows to yell louder. Okay?
Yep. Can everybody hear all right so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to stand over here because I can control my laptop and with the pictures. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to talk. You think this is
That looks
good
great.
for me, Mint, to talk from here?
Yeah, because most people will watch that.
Okay. Yeah, so if I'm talking and the stuff on the screen, it's kind of, I'm talking about what's going to be on the screen. So, Mindy, one man's journey on the Appalachian Trail. Hello, come on in.
Hey, Ryan.
We just got started talking, so you haven't missed anything. That's a picture of me at Mount Katahdin, which is the northern point on the Appalachian Trail. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the trail. Some of you might be very familiar, and some might only have heard about it and not really know too much about it. So I'll go from there, and I'll just take a slide at a time. So the entire Appalachian Trail, Min, maybe I could get your help with the map, since your phone's recording on its own. Now the entire Appalachian Trail runs from Springer Mountain in Georgia. Now this is a map of the Appalachian Trail that I made, well, I didn't make the map, but I gave it to Mindy, and her sister has one as well. And the trail, if you actually tip this just a little, now it looks more like the states, like there's Maine up top and Georgia's way down here. And I can't see real clearly, but Springer Mountain is Georgia, way down here. Okay, here it is. So that's the beginning of the trail, and it goes all the way through the Appalachian Mountains, all the way up till it gets to Mount Katahdin in Maine. The total distance is 2,192 miles. And some people do hike the entire trail. Just to show them a little bit quickly about the map, I'm going to talk about, but I started at this point, which is, you can see it's about halfway, and I went to the northern part of the trail.
Which is how long?
I'll get to that when I get to the slide. The entire trail goes through 14 states: Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, which is where I started. Everything from West Virginia on was what I hiked. Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So it sounds like a lot just thinking of how many states I did. So, that's a picture of the map. Now those push pins in the map, I'll get into that just briefly. Every time I stopped at night, I let my kids know, all right, I'm going to stay at this shelter or this tent site or in this town. And Mindy put a pin every single night that I saw. So what's there, over 100 pins?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, figure it. It was about a 4-month journey. So what did I hike? I went from Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, to Mount Katahdin in Maine. Total distance, 1,167 miles. How you doing? Come on in. Just got started a couple minutes ago, so come on in and make yourselves comfortable. It took me, I rode 4 months. It took me 4.5, but I had 2 weeks where I got off the trail and I had to do some stuff back and I did 10 states, and I started April 24th, and I finished on September 9th, September 9th of 2019.
Talk a little louder when you look away.
Okay, all right. All right, I made a note, this is the hardest thing that I've ever done. Hiking, has anybody done any hiking? Yeah, we got a few.
Raise your hands high
Yeah,
and
so a few of you have done some hiking over the years, so you know it's not easy. It can be very rewarding, but it can be very, very challenging. It's work, and to do 1,100 miles on the Appalachian Trail through mountains and over rivers and around lakes and all that stuff, it's physically challenging, and you're out there every single day. And the only thing I did was I'd get up in the morning, I'd put my tent and my sleeping bag, pack everything back in my backpack, which we'll get into later, and just start walking. You know, some days I felt good and I'd go further, other days were tough days and it took me a little bit longer. So some of the things I dealt with: weather, cold, rain, sun, sunburn, sweat, hot and humid, the terrain, you know, in some of the bigger mountains up north, very rugged and rough, and you do a lot of hand over fist climbing as opposed to just hiking along with your feet. Pennsylvania was known for their rocks, and Vermont was covered in mud, so you were trudging through, you know, pretty deep mud at times. Bugs, well, we know how bad mosquitoes can be. I fought fatigue and exhaustion a lot of the time, and it was very physically and mentally challenging. You know, as a long journey like that, you kind of expect it to be, you know. But it was incredibly rewarding as well. I survived living outside for months. You know, everything I had with me was right here, unless I stopped in a town and treated myself to a hotel room or a nice hot meal or something like that. Met hundreds of people. People from all over the country, and some people from different parts of the world. I met people from Germany and England and Australia, and the first day I met a girl from, I think she said she was from Taiwan, if my memory serves me right. I traveled over 1,000 miles on foot, over mountains, valleys, rivers, lakes, towns, lots of new places that I never have been to before. So it was really, it was challenging and very rewarding at the same time. A couple of keywords, I put this in here just to help people that aren't familiar with hiking or the Appalachian Trail, and specifically, if you see the letters AT anywhere in the slides or anything, it just means Appalachian Trail. It's an abbreviation. Trail name. Now, a trail name is something like, my name is Ed. I forgot to introduce myself, or did I?
I think you did.
Okay, but my name is Ed, but on the trail, I was only Ed for like 4 days. What you do is, other hikers make names up for each other. So it'd be like, oh, I make a name for you, you make a name for me, he makes a name for her, and just through the journey. And my name, my trail name, is Boondocker. And I got that name because I like to, I live in my camper right now, I travel around the country, and the term boondocking regarding traveling in your camper means trying to find places where you can camp for free. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management. So somebody on the trail said, wow, you're doing that? You're living like that? Let's call you Boondocker. So that was how I got my trail name. Through hike, flip-flop, which is a hike, as well as section hike. Those are types of hikes that you can do on the Appalachian Trail. Through hike, you go from the beginning to the end, Georgia to Maine, or Maine to Georgia. Flip-flop, maybe you start somewhere in the middle, you go one direction, and later you go the other direction. You try to do it all in the same year. And a section hike, you kind of do, you could be out for a week, a couple of days, a long weekend, a month, 2 months or whatever, so you're doing a section of the trail. A white blaze is just a white rectangle that you see on the trees, on the rocks. Sometimes you see 2 of them. It's how you identify the trail. The Appalachian Trail is all white blazes. Like for instance, 2, if you get one here and one up above and slightly to the left, it means there's a left turn coming up ahead. So be on the lookout. Anyone know what a privy is? Bathroom. And they're not always very nice. 0 day, that's a day where I have no hiking at all. I just take a day in town. Maybe I do 2 nights. I get into town. I wake up and don't do any hiking that day. So 0 days is kind of something you look forward to. And the best thing is trail magic. Anybody heard of that term? Some of you have. Trail magic is, say you're hiking along and you're just working your way through and you come out of the woods onto this road and somebody's there with a cooler full of food. They got some soda. Maybe they got some food that they're cooking on the grill, or some chips, or anything that's a surprise that somebody's treating you something. And it could be anything. I've walked along and just saw a cooler sitting there and a little sign that says, hikers, help yourself, and you open up in this soda. You grab a soda, close it, my little thank you note. So that's trail magic, because it's some little treat along the way that nobody was expecting. All right, there you go. My trail name's Boondocker, and that's at me up on Mount Katahdin. And let's see. So I'm gonna kind of go through some of the, a little bit about a couple of, like a state or 2, then some pictures, and then I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. So West Virginia and Maryland together. I started at Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, April 24th. I only did 2 miles in West Virginia because you're in the city, and 2 miles later you're at the bridge and you're crossing it over the river into Maryland. And Maryland, the trail, and when I give distances, it's just the Appalachian Trail distances. 41 miles in Maryland, and a lot of the trail runs along the backbone of South Mountain. And I also visited my nephew Michael and his girlfriend while I was in town. So we'll show a couple of pictures. There you go, that's me on the first day.
In that outfit.
And that's why I kind of wore everything that, well, I got a different hat. My hat's changed, and actually my hiking poles, they changed as well, because my hiking poles broke, and the hat that I started with, which was an Orlando hat, ended up, the Velcro wasn't working, and by the time I got to New Hampshire, I met a friend who I volunteered with the Forest Service up in New Hampshire, and he gave me one of the volunteer hats. But, yeah, so that's my first day, and in Harpers Ferry, there's an Appalachian Trail headquarters. So that's what makes it the unofficial halfway point. I actually did a little bit more than half the trail distance, but that, because there's a headquarters there, that's a great place to call the halfway point. Well, we'll go through a few pictures. I mean, you give me shout outs around every 15 minutes or so.
Okay, 13 minutes in.
Is it all right? Okay, so there's just some pictures. I'll just scroll through them. That's in Harpers Ferry. That's crossing the bridge over to Maryland. Now this is where the interview, I'm going to do a little interview slide. The first day, a hiker made some videos along the trail, and he asked if anyone wanted to do an interview. I said, it's only my first day, but I'll do it, and I'll show you that in 1 second. But that is the first shelter I got to when I was taking a lunch break there. And this is kind of, I don't know if you can see it clearly. Would it be better with dim lights, man?
I don't know.
Maybe to see the screen, because that's kind of, you could try that while I work on it. Just might be better. But that view out that window, it was kind of nice for my first time. All right, so right here, I'm going to play an interview.
Okay.
This was another hiker interviewing me on my very first day.
right, guys. We have a flip-flop through hiker here, and you started from Harper's Ferry?
Harper's Ferry today.
Right on.
Can everybody hear it?
Right on. What's your hiking background? Have you been on any other trails?
Well, I've been hiking from New England, so the White Mountains up in New England.
That's the hardest part of the AT.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I don't know that yet because I haven't done the AT yet.
But you hiked around there.
And it can be tough.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's great terrain, running stuff and challenging.
The views are incredible.
The views are incredible. You spend a lot of time above tree line.
Yeah.
You know, when you hit the presidential range, it's gorgeous up there.
What's the best part of the Whites, you would say? What do you think? Would it be Mount Washington, or is that too sketchy, you think?
No, Mount Washington's awesome.
Yeah.
If you can hit it when you got visibility.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're in the clouds and it can be
Rock on rock on rock. What's your trail name?
I do not have one.
Okay.
Yeah, first day out, so I figured I'd let it take place on its own. You know?
Somebody will think of something clever.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who was hiking with me. He came up with nope. He would show up at shelters and people would be like, "You got a trail name?" Nope. Nope.
So
Nope. Yeah.
There
So
you go.
everyone gets one.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Well, would you're gonna go up all the way to Katahdin and then flip back here?
I'm going to, yeah, that's my goal.
Yeah.
So I figure the first goal is just to get to Katahdin. I'll do one portion at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Helps the psychological aspect of it. So.
Yeah.
And then with any luck, if I do good, I get there in a reasonable time. Back to Harper's Ferry, head down to Springer.
South to Springer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was avoiding the crowds in Springer. That's why I started at Harper's Ferry.
They're encouraging that. They're saying it's smarter to do a flip flop.
And so many people do it. I do. I like the mentality of preserving Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think that overcrowding is damaging.
Yeah.
Plus, I prefer
That's
less
smart.
crowd. You know.
Are you going to be camping in shelters mostly? Do you have a tent you're going to be
I
staying
got
in?
both.
Okay.
I'm planning both. I really don't have a plan. It depends because I made a list of different shelters and campsites.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever I am when I decide to stop. So.
That was awesome. Well, thanks for the interview, and I wish you the best. You got this. You're gonna.
All right.
Happy trails.
See you at the end.
All right.
All right. So that was my first day on the trail. I was totally surprised this guy wanted to do an interview with somebody, and I volunteered. So, and everybody could hear that okay, I hope? All right. It's hard to get the volume right where I need it from. All right, so I'm going to go back to some more pictures. This is still in Maryland. I was going through like a state park there. This is probably one of my first tent sites where I set up my tent, my backpack there. Crossing over a highway, there's a little flag on there. Lots of signs out there. This one happens to show that I got 1,080 miles to go to get to where I'm going in Maine. And I'm shorter to get to Georgia. I should have went that way. All right, so a little bit about Pennsylvania. On April 28th, I got my trail name, which I told you was Boondocker. Pennsylvania is 230 miles of trail, and it goes from Penmar to Delaware Water Gap. I crossed the Mason-Dixon line. Pennsylvania is known for very rocky terrain. There's not a lot of steep terrain, but there's a lot of rocks. Your feet take a beating. The actual halfway point, you pass a sign that says if you started in Georgia, you're halfway to your destination in Maine. It's coal country, farmland, state parks and forests. And I also met my friend John along the trail, so I'll show you some pictures from here. The Mason-Dixon line. And there's you can see a Maryland on one side, Pennsylvania, so it's right at the border. And that little thing on the post there is like a little mailbox. You can sign a log and say you crossed the line. So you see lots of little cool little features along the trail. Probably hundreds and hundreds of them. Just little destinations and little markers. So, but that's one of them, and I thought that's a big one, you know, Mason-Dixon. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but that's the trail.
Oh my God.
Right through the mud, and right through the water, And my whole first, month and a half, it rained
Every day.
probably 5 days a week, maybe 6. It was like almost always raining. No, there was a lot of mud. That was just a cool rock that somebody decorated. And it's hard to tell from this angle, but you actually have to walk up along the edge. The trail goes right over the top of this, and it actually drops off like this. So pictures don't always do things justice, but they called that the knife edge. This was in a church basement. They allowed hikers to stay for free. They just took donations. And I don't know if you can see clearly, but that blue sweeping back there, that's mine. So that was my rack. So,
Dad.
oh, man.
Glad you didn't do that on that rock area.